Hey everyone, it's Richard here with a long-term review of the 3F Lanshan Ultralight tent that I bought from AliExpress. I've had the tent for just over 8 months now, and I've used it for around 25 nights. I've used the tent in all sorts of weather conditions, from sunny to windy to rain. Now the only thing is I haven't had it in extreme wind, even though I've had it in high wind, so I can't comment on how the tent would hold up in a proper storm. In order to pitch the tent, I lay the fly sheet and the inner so that it lays flattish on the ground, and then I stake out the 4 corners of the fly sheet and the bathtub together. Then, for most weather conditions, I set my walking pole at 125 centimeters and insert that into the middle of the tent. Next, making sure that both of the loops on the door opening are hooked onto the double hook, I peg the entry side guy line out with a shepherd hook stake. Then finally, I go around the tent and stake out the guy lines as well as readjust the 4 corners that I pegged out initially. Let's talk about the sizing of the Lanshan first. As covered in my initial review of the tent, I'm 5'11" and I fit comfortably inside the tent with an inflatable pad. Now if I use a pillow, sometimes the netting does touch my hair or it touches the toes of my feet. As such, I think the tent would be suitable for someone who is 6 foot and under, or someone who is just over 6 foot tall if they are using a foam pad which is not as thick as my inflatable pad. As for vertical space, the only place where I can sit upright without my hair brushing against the netting is the middle of the tent. Inside the tent there is ample space. I normally spread out my gear and have more than enough space for everything as I store my backpack in the vestibule. On to wet weather performance. The tent does come seam taped, but the bar tacks on the fly sheet are not seam sealed. However, I have used the tent in heavy persistent rainfall and the fly sheet didn't appear to have let any rain through. I have seam sealed the tent myself just for additional peace of mind since then, and as expected, it has kept all the rain out. The problem I have found with wet weather is not keeping the water out, but rather letting the moisture out. Often, during heavy and persistent rain, the fly sheet does get somewhat saturated with condensation on the inside. One time at dawn, after a 20 degrees Celsius drop in temperature overnight, I've had to wipe away condensation from the inside of the fly sheet. However, this may be at least partially due to the fact that we pitched meters away from a marsh, as the double-layered tents also suffer from the same issue. The tent has also held up fine in windy conditions. The stitching has held, and due to the shape it sheds wind quite nicely. My only minor complaint is unless you opt for a lower pitch, in which case condensation becomes more of a problem, the door side may flap a little bit, so if you're a light sleeper, your sleep may be affected. The bathtub floor, despite some cosmetic marks, has held up just fine. There are no holes, even though I store my photography gear, which has sharp metal angular points, unprotected on the inside of the tent at night. I'm also really happy with the quality of the zips. Even though they're not YKK branded zips, they glide really smoothly and I have no complaints about them whatsoever. The quality of the inner net also seems to be pretty good. It's small enough that it doesn't let any insects or flies or midges through. As for the aluminium pegs that came with the tent, which are MSR Mini Groundhog knockoffs, they've all survived and has not once let me down. Overall, I'm quite pleased with the Lanshan one and I would not hesitate to use it in my future trips and I would happily recommend it. I hope that this long-term review has answered any questions you may have regarding the Lanshan's performance in the field. But if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below and I'll do my best to answer them. As always, thank you all for watching and I'll see you in the next one.